that's fine. All right, everybody, we are here. And I'm absolutely delighted to be the next person in this series of going deeper on our spiritual journeys and learning together in Lent, which Pastor Debbie kicked off so beautifully on February 18th for us with the video of Cynthia Bourgeau. With your permission, I'd like to do two things together today. The first is to revisit part of Cynthia Bourgeau's message, particularly about the heart-brain connection, and share a little bit of information about a secular organization that's doing similar work, just to kind of put it on our map. And then the second part would be using the practice of mindfulness as a bridge to enter into centering prayer. So I'd like to position those two things in that way and run an experiment together. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's just a joy to be with everyone here on the screen as well as here and in person. Let's see if I can at least name that we've got Pastor Debbie, Tony Lister, Meg, Bronwyn, Jan, and Louise with us today, along with Barb and Barb Ryan. Beautiful. So it's wonderful to have everyone together. And we'll give Jan a minute to get herself up to the front row. Welcome. So glad you could make it. Okay, wherever you're comfortable. So, as we are transitioning from the rest of our day today, yeah, I just saw Jan take a nice slow deep breath. Why don't we give ourselves permission to do that? And for Debbie and me who've been fumbling with technology, it's always nice to, yeah, I love to see people taking a long, slow deep breath. What a beautiful, beautiful capacity we have to gather ourselves. And that's really the gateway. That's the gateway that mindfulness often uses. You all are such masters. I can see it on your faces. All right. So what I wanted to revisit in Cynthia Bourgeau's message about Christian centering prayer was the explanation of what we're doing when we engage in that practice. So she talked about the idea that this is a practice that's meant to be a simplified, that Christian centering prayer is a simplified form of meditation in the Christian tradition. And that it was designed to make contemplative practice, which had been the realm of monks and nuns who would spend very long periods of time in solitude and deep practice, but to make it accessible to people in everyday life. So that's the intention of Christian centering prayer. I explored a little bit about how this practice is perceived, and I found the term divinely infused prayer, which was used by Sister Mary Colombier of the Carmelite Sisters of Los Angeles. So I thought that was lovely, because I, as a person who's been practicing and teaching mindfulness meditation for going on 4 decades, I'm very curious and interested to look at what are the overlaps in those practices and then what's distinctive. And this Sister Colombier referred to mindfulness meditation as human prayer and comparing that to Christian centering prayer being divinely infused prayer. And I think that word infused is useful there. divinely infused. So we are doing, when we're practicing Christian centering prayer, we actually are intending to have that connection with the divine. That's the distinction that I can articulate. So I'll go back over what those two things are in a minute, but I think it's a useful starting point for what we're going to be doing today. And one of the things that got me really jazzed when I heard Cynthia Bourgeau's talk back on February 18th was this business of heart and brain coherence, the heart and brain connection. And she uses the language, which it comes from, she said, the Eastern tradition of putting the mind in the heart. Yeah. She also, just as a little aside, and I love this too, her language is so useful. She said centering prayer is a boot camp in meditation form for putting on the mind of Christ, for putting the mind in the heart, for rearranging the neurology and theology of perception, thought by thought by thought. So she's actually articulating this technology. And it's beautiful the way that she's doing this. I've seen and heard it described in much more physiological terms, and I'm going to take us there for a moment and end it. And it's beautiful to see the link with the divine, but that's part of this practice. So putting the mind in the heart. This term is what Cynthia Bourgeau offers us. It also shows up in other secular organizations as heart-brain coherence, or even simply heart coherence. So Cynthia describes this practice of having the brain and heart resonate together as entraining the rhythms of the brain to the field of the heart so that they become one object of perception. One object of perception. So what I'd like to take us to now is another way of talking about this that's expressed through his organization called the Heart Math Institute. Has anyone heard of Heart Math? Okay, and the man who founded it is named Doc Childra, and he founded a business called Heart Math that's now employing 8,000 coaches and mental health professionals all over the world to teach people these skills. They've also established a nonprofit institute, the Heart Math Institute. Since '91, they've been collecting decades of scientific data, including MRI studies and so on, to show the health benefits of this business of the heart and mind resonating together. The language that they use, the Heart Math Institute, is that this practice that we're developing is to bridge the intuitive connection between the heart and mind and deepen our connection with the hearts of others. So it's kind of a twofold mission. And Cynthia Bourgeau also used language to talk about how this practice can help us in our relations with others. She said contemplative prayer is key to practicing compassion that moves beyond ego identification, activism, and do-goodism. So getting out of our small self, right? Getting out of our, what she called our microdramas. Yeah. I love that term too. So I'm going to offer us here a 2-minute introduction to the Heart Math Institute. It's on their website and you can go to it and hear it again if you like.
Can you spell that, please? M-A-T-H?
Mm-hmm.
Heart.
All one word.
Oh, okay.
Math.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's right. M-A-T-H. Can you get it? Yep. All right, I'll let you run. You do not have to worry.
Good.
I'm sharing my screen here.
Yeah.
And we're not going to hear the sound, we're just going to see the captions. But I think I can read them in real time. So what is heart coherence? Heart coherence is a healthy, high performance state, physically, emotionally, and mentally, that brings out the very best in us. The broader term coherence always implies harmonious order, connectedness, stability, and efficient use of energy. It can be seen all around us when we observe life through the lens of the heart. The beauty and intricate balance of nature is a magnificent demonstration of coherence. Increased coherence happens at times within the human experience too. For example, most of us have had days where everything seemed to flow. We felt good, composed, and clear. We were able to adapt quickly to whatever came our way with balance and poise. In the 1990s, HeartMath Institute researchers identified a physiological state called heart coherence, a type of coherence that occurs when our body systems, such as our breathing, blood pressure, hormonal response, and heart rhythms, are in sync with each other. They also discovered heart coherence not only affected physical processes, but also our mental and emotional composure. Their research showed that heart coherence could be self-created, leading to less mental and emotional stress and more inner stability. In summary, heart coherence is a synchronized state, physically, emotionally, and mentally, then we can easily learn to bring into everyday life, allowing us to become our best selves. So that is a very brief introduction to the way that HeartMath is teaching people to establish heart-brain coherence, or what they call heart coherence. What we're doing when we aspire to Christian centering prayer is adding the element of our connection to the divine. That's very interesting to me. I'd like to just share with you too, very briefly, because it's exciting to know there are other people in the world who are trying to help people find this capacity within themselves to optimize their life experience, which also has a way of creating peace in the world. That is part of what this emanation of harmony, inner harmony, is doing. The technology involves a sensor that you purchase from this company, and I'm not selling anything, no. I don't have any affiliation with them. I'm just learning about them myself. But you buy this sensor that gives you biofeedback information about your heart rate variability. So that's the data that you're getting. And that allows you to learn how to use your emotions, thoughts, attitudes, and breath to calibrate your own brain and heart coherence. So there are two pieces of technology people often get when they do this with HeartMath. There's the sensor that you purchase, it's a little device, and then there's an app that you put on your phone. And so you can actually, has anybody done biofeedback training? I did that as part of a therapy session. You get data on what's going on inside of your body, and then people can lower their blood pressure, lower their heart rate, all kinds of things through that, getting that information, that data. So they are using this physiological data to help people achieve a certain inner state. So mindfulness meditation practice comes from the Eastern Asian traditions, thousands of years old, and it employs the use of a focus on a particular anchor of awareness, often the breath, to achieve a similar effect of calm, focus, steadiness, the ability to let go of our small self, and be open to a broader experience of life. And it's also a practice that is often engaged to develop the qualities of compassion and kindness. So now I'm starting to share with you where the practices of mindfulness and contemplative prayer overlap. So both of them are going to support us to turn our focus inward. Both of them are centrally focused on this practice of letting go. And both of them help us let go of our small self and open to something bigger beyond our microdrama. What's really interesting and unique about contemplative prayer is the first of the 3 points that Cynthia taught us about the prayer. So just to review, right? The first point is that we set an intention. And the intention is to be available to the divine presence, or whatever language works for you. And the second one is that when we become aware of a thought, we let it go. And thought is anything that our consciousness lands on. That could be a physical sensation or an emotion or And then the third step for contemplative prayer is that when we catch ourselves in the midst of a thought, we can use the tool of a word that we've chosen as a way to return to our intention to be available to the divine. So that key concept of intention is so important for this practice. Mindfulness practice can be defined. I'm drawing on the definition that I was taught through John Kabat-Zinn's program, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. Mindfulness is a practice of bringing our full awareness to the present moment and releasing judgment. And it takes seconds to say that and a whole lifetime to learn how to do that. Just as my favorite part of the Cynthia Bourgeau video was the story she told about that uptight nun who was sitting there tense, trying to do this practice and reporting to Father Keating, "Oh, I failed utterly." My mind went to 10,000 thoughts. And he smiled and said, 10,000 moments to return to God. Isn't that beautiful? It's a great story. And that's another overlap between mindfulness and contemplative prayer. So mindfulness practice is the practice of choosing an anchor of awareness. And for today, I'll offer the anchor of the breath. So we choose to focus on the breath, as Cynthia says, on the front end. We choose to put our focus on the breath. And when we notice our thought has taken our mind away, we return, we let go and return to the breath. So that's where we're starting with breath. We're starting with that. When we shift to contemplative prayer, which is what I'll ask us to do, we'll start with mindfulness and shift. That's when we start with our intention to be available to the divine. And when we notice our thought, we let it go and choose to use whatever word you've chosen to return to that state of being available. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Would you do the part about the mindfulness? I'm much more familiar with centered prayer.
Oh, wonderful.
We're talking about mindfulness. Not familiar with that. Just to get a little bit more of a distinction.
Sure.
Would you say the two things that it covers again?
Yes. Mindfulness practice is a practice of bringing our full awareness to the present moment.
Okay. So
And when we notice that our mind is caught in a thought or a judgment, releasing.
okay. So yeah, which is we do that.
Similar, what she's saying.
Yeah.
The similarity
Yeah.
is interesting, the difference.
What's different is where we're returning. When we practice mindfulness, when we're aware that a thought has distracted us, whatever that thought would be, sensation or emotion, whatever. When we're practicing mindfulness, we're bringing our awareness back to the breath, or if you've chosen a different anchor of awareness, whatever that is.
Okay.
But the kind of standard practice of mindfulness is we start by focusing on the breath. Yeah, and Steve, when he attended the February 18th program, he said that's sort of his way of getting going with centering prayer. And I think you said that's a simple form. It's a simple form of centering prayer. So it made sense to me to test this out today and practice using mindfulness practice sort of as our stepping stone, as a bridge, as a starting place for us to then move in to centering prayer. see how it works and see what you think about that.
Thanks.
I'm glad you asked that question. And also, I understand that these other sessions that have been run, there have been a body prayer and then a chant before getting in practice. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to start with a particular kind of body practice through the mindfulness tradition and then a chant.
One thing, just when we went to the wisdom introductory workshop, so they did talk about being very much involved with some of the Gurdjieff movement, going through the Gurdjieff motions for the body work. And so it really said to me that she was combining centered prayer with the Gurdjieff body awareness. She was really I guess they're both been very helpful. So that was interesting. And sort of really involved also with that.
Definitely.
So that's kind of like you're bringing in sort of looking at the parallels. It's like she's brought in the Gurdjieffian work stuff to sort of figure out how it integrates with centering prayer, but then you're doing mindfulness and how it overlaps. So it's interesting.
Many streams, one river, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's where we are.
yeah.
Ready to dive in? So the practice I'd like to offer for our body practice here is called the contact points practice.
What?
Contact points practice. It is not an ancient practice. It's a newer practice that comes from trauma theorists working with mindfulness to help people who have trouble focusing on their breath because it actually triggers some of their trauma. It's a delightful way to get started with any mindfulness practice. That's why I'm offering it today. So this practice can be done with your eyes opened or closed, sitting or lying down or standing. And the invitation here is to allow awareness to settle down at the soles of your feet and noticing any sensations that you can pick up there at the soles of your feet. Sensations of heat or coolness, pressure, tingling, any sensations that you're noticing where your feet are making contact with the floor. And then even below that, sensing how we're making connection with planet Earth. And the mind sometimes likes to sort these sensations into good and bad and neutral. And if your mind is making that judgment call, not a problem, just noticing, allowing your awareness to return to the bare sensations at the soles of your feet. And now, if you like, expanding that field of awareness to include a second set of contact points, which is where your body is making contact with the chair or bed if you're lying down. The backs of your thighs, your buttocks, and maybe your lower back or your entire back. You might have arms resting on the arms of a chair. And again here, noticing any sensations of heat or coolness, pressure, perhaps the resting of the fabric against your skin, any pulsing or tingling, or itching, noticing any sensations. Now, if you like, allowing awareness, the field of awareness to expand one more time to include a third set of contact points where your palms are resting. So your palms might be resting against your own legs or resting one against the other or on the arms of a chair or on your belly, wherever your hands are resting. Noticing any sensations on the palms of your hands, temperature, pressure, pulsing or tingling, any other sensations. And when your mind drifts away from these sensations, just noticing where it's landed and allowing awareness to return to your contact points. So now, if you like, allowing awareness to shift to the sensation of breath flowing in and out of your body, wherever you might be noticing that. So you might be noticing your chest rising and falling, or air flowing in and out of your nostrils. You might notice your diaphragm expanding and contracting, or your ribs. Or there may be some other place where your breath is very evident to you. And this is a practice of witnessing the miracle of our body doing what it does 24/7 without our having to think about it. Just noticing the in-breath, noticing the out-breath. Now, if it's very uncomfortable for you to pay attention to your breath today, you are most welcome to return your awareness to the contact points and focus on them. And at any time, if you're starting to feel a little restless, you can always take a break by opening your eyes and looking around the room. Turning your head and neck, these are all ways to give yourself a break. And you might find, if your awareness is settled on the breath, that without you having to do anything about it, sometimes the body will simply begin to breathe more slowly and deeply. And if that's not happening, no worries, it's fine. Just noticing the sensation of breath flowing in and flowing out. And since our minds are wired to produce thought after thought after thought, when that happens, just noticing what's arising. And when you notice, when you're aware of a thought or a sensation or an emotion, an item to add to the to-do list, just letting it go, like letting go of a balloon and allowing it to float up into the sky. And returning your focus to the breath. Or your other chosen anchor of awareness. And if you're noticing any muscle tension, you're becoming aware of any tension in your neck and shoulders and your belly. Sometimes we clench hands and toes without being aware. There's an invitation to just allow all that to release on the next exhalation. Now what I'd like to offer is that we transition to centering prayer by means of 3 rounds of our chant. My heart is open to you, God. So I'll kick us off. My heart is open to you. My heart is open to you, God. Come dwell in my heart. Come dwell in my heart. My heart is open to you. My heart is open to you, God. Come dwell in my heart. Come dwell in my heart. My heart is open to you. My heart is open to you. Come dwell in my heart. Come dwell. So now at your own pace, the invitation to make ourselves available to divine presence, letting go when a thought comes and returning to whatever word helps us remember our intention. And I'll speak again when our practice is ended. As we're ready now, concluding prayer time. Amen. So we do have about 15 minutes to share reflections on practice today, the results of the experiments we've been running, people who are here live and people joined through Zoom. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and reflections.
For me personally, the contact point thing and the breath stuff before was helpful in getting me more still or whatever. Then I really like, I love that chant.
First thing I woke up this morning, that chant came to mind as like the slip and slide. Remember that slip and slide? How you'd slide down that? That's like slip and slide right in the centering prayer. You know. And Louise.
I also like the sense of, I just call it groundedness with, starting with kind of foot contact, but I really like the other parts of the body contact. It just seemed, kind of to help integrate things.
Margie, and we want you to unmute, please. There we go.
Yep, I will. So I decided, we talked about this, I think I talked about this last week. I decided to light some of my Japanese incense. And I just found that the fragrance, in addition to the contact points and the focusing on the breath, the fragrance actually seems to calm my mind. I don't know why. It's just, since we're sharing techniques, I think my mind was less active. Now maybe I'm, not sure that I'm really actually focusing on the smell. It's just part of the present moment. And then one of the thoughts that, came to mind was I was thinking about the times that I sat in a unprogrammed Quaker meeting. And there you're opening yourself to the divine, but you're also listening. And I can't really describe what the listening is like, where that listening occurs, but you're open to hearing something from the divine. And in their practice, they're sort of aware of the fact that your mind is busy. And so they have guidelines, I would call them, for trying to discern whether what you're hearing is a message for yourself or a message for the community. So that's just a difference than the centering prayer, because I think the centering prayer is not necessarily wanting you to focus on what thoughts might come in. So that's just something else I wanted to share in terms of Christian practices. I mean, the Quakers have an amazing history and of centering, and I think they call it centering down.
Right.
Is the Quaker term for it. Anyway, that's just another sharing in terms of we're thinking of meditation practices.
Thank you for both of those. Thank you for your experience of the incense and how it contributed to your settling, and the Quaker practice of opening and listening, centering down. Yeah, very rich. It's fascinating to put all of these here on the map.
Cynthia had a Quaker background. As growing up as a child.
That makes sense.
Quaker community.
Tony was saying Cynthia had a Quaker background. You can really feel that in her presence.
Well, she's interesting, you can read, because her family, I think, were Unitarian. I mean, they were not, or Christian Science, they were Christian Science. They were definitely not, but they sent her to a friend's school. And she talks about being in this Quaker school where they were expected, and she said they marched us in every week and just sort of throw us in the deep end, and just supposed to be able to sit in the meeting house space and sit
Wow.
with no real instruction. Just children were expected, they could be do this. And they went in there and sat every week. So it's a very interesting piece of her formation, I think. Yeah.
Well, this might be tangential, but every time the Virginia folks are mentioned, I grew up in Wisconsin, quite near Tallahassee, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's design school. And his aunt, Margaret Ann Fuller, was a transcendentalist. And but the Frank Lloyd Wright Society, which consisted of Wright and all the pupils there at the time, they were very involved in being a Gurdjieff practicing community. But they, as I understand it, they used all the senses, like they had pianists, they dressed for dinner. I mean, you can imagine these design students are all doing all the years to get their work done. And then they come to quite a formal dinner, which is quite orchestrated. So I just can't help but think of that whole process as, you know, they were trying to, I think, focus on the aesthetics. And anyway, that's what.
And his work is so incredibly integrated with nature. And
Very much so, absolutely, and that's a whole transcendental
yeah, and
connection there.
there's that connection with the divine essence right there. That makes total sense to me. Debbie.
Oh, it just, what Louise was saying just made me think of anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner, and this form of movement called eurythmy, which is fascinating to watch, but it's another expression of the body, that of the divine manifesting through movement, human movement. It just feels so important. In this meditation, I too found the contact, being connected to the contact points, very, very grounding, as Louise said. And so simple, you know, there's always some contact we don't float about, unfortunately. But when you bring your attention, when I bring my attention to those points, I feel an energy that is, I'm not really aware of if I don't do that. So, and it did help me return again to this sort of present state.
Thank you for the feedback. That practice is drawn from a therapeutic program called somatic experiencing, and it was built into a form of mindfulness that was originally offered to Marines to prevent and heal PTSD by Professor Elizabeth Stanley, a 9th generation Army veteran, who's currently the director of security studies at Georgetown University and has a second whole career as an MFIT instructor. She's a truly remarkable humanitarian. And these practices, I have been on Q&A sessions with her monthly for a couple years now. And it brings tears to my eyes to tell you people join those calls and say, you saved my life from the practices. It's very beautiful, the way that meditation can help people heal. And I'm sure centering prayer too has that power. We've got a couple more minutes for the last 2 comments. Thank you, Debbie.
And so this, I always think of this also, I have a non friend who many years ago took us on quite a remarkable journey through the reservation in the Four Corners area. And it's always been challenging for me to discuss spirituality with any Native American peoples that I know, because our languages are so, they're just different. So I finally said, well, can you describe any spiritual practice or activity that you do? And she said, I don't know if this would count in what you're asking for, but she said, every morning when we get up, I take my daughters outside and we make ourselves up. And I said, well, can you describe that a little more? Because makeup, you know, in our world is eyelashes and stuff. And she said, yeah, we begin with the earth. And we bend down and we feel the energy come up. And we go to the sky. And we can feel that connection. I just always thought that was so profound. It just like right there. And I don't know. I think about that when we do the body prayer. It just seems so similar to me.
Yeah.
I think we, it's all one. Like what's in, we talked about not sure what the word is, but forest bathing.
That's what it is. It's a Japanese practice. Yep.
Yeah. Or, you know, it'll be in the ocean and to just instructions. And rocks. Rocks I've always been just big rocks.
Well,
Thank you for this and feedback too. We kind of do that in the summer, but I think when we were sitting down and you told us to, you know, think really deeply about your feet, it was a little bit more present to me.
Well, this seems like a sweet spot to end. So I want to thank everybody for coming and
Thank you.
for the opportunity to share today. It's very joyful and it's interesting. And I'm eager for any other conversations people want to have about this stuff.
Thank you so much, Laura. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you all for joining us on Zoom as well.
Thank you.
We figured out how to make technology sort of work. So,
Well, today, thank you, Debbie.
thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone.
And I just want to mention, as an aside, there's a researcher named Dr. Joe Dispenza who's been teaching people meditation that's helping them heal lots of conditions. He just published a research study on the immune system benefits of meditation, specifically for COVID. So if anybody's interested, I could email it. Would you like me to send it on? Sure. Is there a mailing list for this group, or should I just send it into the church?
We haven't really done a separate one.
Okay.
Why don't you, I mean, I know when people Justice Committee wants to put something in the evenings, which comes out on Wednesdays. We just say equal justice and then put our little blurb. So it goes out to the whole congregation and
Okay.
if people don't want to read about that, they can not read it.
So I could, should I, put, the Lent series